Welcome back, everybody, to our live Rumble show with myself, Rachel Uchitel from Misunderstood, and Sarah Fraser from the Sarah Fraser Show. Hi, Sarah.
Hey, girl. How are ya?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be back. We have so much to go over. We have 1 hour. We've got to go right into it.
Okay, let's do it. I know you have a flight to catch, so
Yes.
we gotta hit all the topics. Start. You tell me.
Okay, well, so we have our list, but I do have to say, because last week or the week before we were talking about my dating life, I just wanted to fill you in on a funny story. And then maybe next week when we have a lot more time, we'll go into some of them. But I was driving to a date, like a first date with someone, and I get pulled over by a cop, okay, for not having my registration. Whole nother story. Okay. But anyway, and as the cop is getting, the stuff, how he's running it in his car to make sure I'm a legal citizen or whatever. My phone rings and I answer it, and it's this woman, and she goes, "Hi, is this Rachel?" Yeah. I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, this is Laura. You're dating my fiance." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, who is your fiance?" And she's like, "Philip." And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be great for my podcast. I don't even know what is happening. I'm thinking, first of all, I'm not dating a Philip. I don't know a Philip. And I am on a couple dating apps, okay? And clearly the way dating apps work, you go back and forth, you talk to people. Sometimes you give them your cell phone number and you start to talk, right? So there was a guy, I never spoke to him on the phone. I had all sorts of red flags. The second I gave him my phone number, he showed me pictures of his 5 small dogs. No single man has 5 small dogs. And he talked about how rich he was. And I just thought the whole thing was gross. So he said, "Hey, are you available? Let's start. I want to call you on the phone." Never responded to him. That was that. Apparently, this is the guy who's engaged. So the woman starts to say, "Well, I heard that you guys met at a salad bar in Miami and that you're a liberal podcaster." And I almost fell out of my seat. And I was just like, wait a minute. I said, "First of all, I had a lot of red flags about your fiance." So I stopped talking to him, which sent her like out of her chair. She got mad at me for like having red flags. And I go, "Laura, is that your name? Your fiance is on Hinge. So I think you should know that he has some red flags. And we never met. I don't go to salad bars." He's not only lying to you about his dating, about who he's dating, but he's lying to you about what he's eating, because he's not at a salad bar meeting me. Right. Anyways, you just won't know who the hell you're talking to anymore. What is wrong with people?
Wow.
So Sarah, I feel like I'm done dating. I'm over it. I need some guidance. If anyone, knows any really nice, normal, single men, I'd like to know about them. So you could slide into my DMs.
Wait,
that's all I have to say about that.
Maybe you told me this, but have you ever done a high-end matchmaker?
Yeah, they all suck. Let me explain why they suck, Sarah, because they're all getting people who don't know how to have a real date. So they might be single and wealthy and, be ready for a relationship, but their patterns haven't been worked on. They're single for a reason, probably. Do you know what I mean? So like usually those people are either narcissistic, or they're way too shy, or there's some weird, fetish going on with them. I don't know. I've never met a normal person that way, ever. And also, I'm not going to pay to be on a dating app.
No, good point, right? That's true. Does Hinge charge men and women, or just the guys?
It does charge you if you, do like a certain level. But, so anyways, long story short, I decided that you brought up a good point, that I'm dating the wrong type of people. And I've been kind of going for the same type. So just yesterday, I switched my filters to be much younger. Okay. Because I'm 49. My filters were 55 to 80. I'll be honest with you. So now my filter is 30 to 80. Okay. Well, I think I might have brought it back down to 67 or something.
I love 80.
But my phone, my dating app was blowing up. I've gotten so many requests from guys that are 31 to 37. So I'm interested to see what happens, which brings me into, wanting to say to you, we talked about this. This is not unheard of. The French president, Macron, is married to a woman 26 years his senior. She's 71. He's, I think, 46, right?
Yeah. Right? Yeah, there's like a 24, 25-year age difference.
Yeah, and he's the president, and there's nothing wrong with it. So maybe I could be dating someone first of all, I was married to somebody 10 years younger. That's the father of my child. So I'm 49, he's 39, and he still looks good. So it's not unheard of, and I'm going to try it. So I'll let you know next week what's going on in my love life. But Macron, the
I like
interesting
it.
thing was in 1993, he was 15 years old. He was in high school. His now wife was 40 years old at the time. She was a teacher. And his daughter, her daughter, excuse me, was a classmate of Macron at the time. In 2006, she got a divorce. In January and October of 2007, she married him, and they have 7 grandkids.
Isn't their story wild? And it's making all the headlines because obviously we're going to talk about this very awkward sort of like neck kiss that he
Yeah.
had with one of the administrators or
It's
whatever,
the
or somebody in government.
sports minister. Yeah, first of all, he's a gorgeous man, don't you think?
No, you find him attractive? Oh, the
Oh,
receding hairline, not in. No. Mm.
really? That's
I
not your type?
no. Mm-mm. Like, do you find it really? What do you think's cute about him? Like, I don't find no.
I don't know, I think his face is very cute. In this photo, he looks very short.
I think he looks short, yes. Their story is wild because Bridget, like you said, was his teacher, and he was actually into her at 15 to the point that his parents made him then go to, like, a private boarding school. So the parent
Really?
yes, like, he was, I don't know, open with his parents or whatever that he was sort of crushing on his teacher. Like you said, she was married. Her 3 kids were, like, his age or younger.
Right,
So he ends up going to a different school. There's a level that they always stay in touch, which
right.
is bizarre in itself, but again, like, the French are a little bit different. So, and then, like, they
Well,
just
it's
start
very
dating.
Mary Kay Letourneau, don't you think?
Very. Yes, 100%,
She goes
100%.
to prison, she gets out, and she marries the guy.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is.
I don't know.
It
It's
is.
very strange, but I mean, listen, it's working for them. All right, let's
Look
talk
at
about
this.
some other yeah, I mean,
Why?
these I think that Kiss is very scandalous. It created, it was totally outrageous and sparked a lot of uh embarrassment and hate from the French. So, obviously, even though the French don't mind the age gap, they are not liking this photo at all.
Well, to me, like, didn't you see that picture? I mean, is their marriage good? That to me seems like somebody who's I don't know. Like,
But
I don't think
I don't
they've
know, the
that's
French
not a
are very strange. They kiss very I mean, maybe this is normal in France. I have no idea.
could be the angle, right? It just could be the way that it looks, like the angle, could be just like maybe he awkwardly kind of like approached her, so she ends up you know what I mean? You have to know intent, but that looks
You
very
know,
hot,
listen, I'll tell you
very
something about those French kisses. I dated a guy from Canada, and I got very confused about what side you go in, if you kiss 4 times or 2 times, and I'll tell you the one guy I dated, he was a number 1 draft pick for the CFL. He was down on the field playing. I met his mom up in the stadium, and I was coming down the staircase, she was going up, and I felt in my stomach it was gonna go wrong. I didn't know which side to veer to kiss, ended up making out with her on the lips. Terrible. She didn't speak English. Horrible. She hated me. But it happens. So that could have been one of those awkward moments. He looks shorter than this woman. I don't know. So we gotta give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe.
good point, and I'm always like I love a kiss on each cheek, but don't do it like, if you're doing a second round, it's too much. Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing here? I'm not doing no, we're
Yeah.
not doing it for I don't care what country you're from.
Yeah,
No.
very strange. Okay, let's talk about some other things going on in the Olympics right now. So we were ahead of our time last week talking about the fact that there was some fecal matter issues going on in the Seine, and that people really didn't want to swim in it. In the last couple of days, they had actually postponed the men's Olympic triathlon, and in the last 24 hours, it is back on, baby. They decided that the water quality was up to standards, so now they are going to jump in the water. But I guess I've read in the last week because everyone's been talking about it. The Seine was known as basically like a fecal swamp, like it was like a sewer.
I'm
So
sure, yeah.
they didn't believe that it would be able to be cleaned up in time. So I was thinking when I was watching some people swimming. Yes, I guess it was last night I was watching, and I thought that would have been the nicest. That would have been the best part, the running. I mean, excuse me, the swimming, because it was like 95 degrees or 100 degrees. But I didn't realize they're in there fending for themselves around floating feces.
Shit.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know, I mean, and you do wonder I'm sure they're testing it. I'm sure they're being ethical, but they've spent so much money, over $1 billion to supposedly clean that up. Are they just saying, "Oh, it's good enough"? I mean, can they really at this point? not let people move forward. It's gross. I
Yeah.
feel for those swimmers. That has to be the hardest part, I would think, of getting in that water. Ugh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
rough.
Gross. Okay. The next
So
thing a lot of people are talking about is Simone Biles. Have you been watching The Gymnast?
I have. Because of you, I have to say, I don't think I even would have watched the Olympics, but I knew how excited you were. I knew we were going to talk about it. The women's gymnastics is unbelievable, right?
Unbelievable.
Aren't they so amazing? And even the US men's, the first time they've ever got a medal, I think since 1984 or
Yeah.
something. Even the men are bringing it. I've been watching the swim. I like the French guy a lot. Who's the our producer George can look him up. He's like supposed to be right behind Michael Phelps. I don't think he's broke any of Phelps records yet. But
Okay.
anyway, he's very exciting to watch swimming. I am loving it. But Simone Biles is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, she absolutely is the go. You know, these human interest stories are so great to see what she's
Yeah.
accomplished and what she's gone through from last year, to see how there was another member of their former team that said that they were lazy and could never win. And now they've won all these gold medals. You know, and also one of the girls is 16 years old. I mean, what a story. And then one of the girls, and I'm blanking on her name, I hate to say it, the Asian girl, just last year had all sorts of liver problems, blew up like a balloon, and couldn't perform because something was going on with internally. And so she had all sorts of health issues, and now she's back. So I think what's gone on is great. You do see a lot of people having an issue, however, with Simone Biles' husband. What's this guy's name? He has a name in and of itself. He plays on the Packers, Jonathan Owens. People were freaking out and disliking her husband's move of putting her gold medal on him. What do you think about that?
People hate this guy for many reasons. I think he did an interview something about like Simone's also his wife, and like I don't know, like she respects him in the relationship or something. Give me a break. I mean, she has how many medals? Like 12? Like I think the guy can wear one. I mean, he's celebrating her. He has a shirt all about her. He's there. I thought this was so stupid. People really come for this guy, and I'm like,
Yeah,
why?
I don't get it. I mean, I think
Me neither. I don't get it
they're a
either.
good-looking couple. Clearly, they're in
Yes.
love. She's proud to be his wife and not just like an Olympic gold medalist. She sees value in who she is as his wife. Like, what's the problem?
I couldn't agree with you more. I thought that was so stupid. And it's like, I'm sure there's other athletes there whose spouses are putting on their gold medals. And by the way, if you and I were there, wouldn't you want to put on someone's medal? Like, isn't that the whole, I'm never going
If
to be an
someone
Olympian.
gave me their
Like,
medal, I would put it on and run away with it. And
thank
I would say
you.
that I deserved it. Like,
And
yeah, what's wrong with people? I don't understand why everyone wants to hate on everybody.
people
It's
don't like him after an article that came out. And honestly, I don't even remember the premise of it, but it was something about how she's, he was saying, like, yes, she is the greatest of all time, but he's also amazing in the relationship. I'm like, why do y'all care? Like they seem happy. She's defended him. Like she's rides with him. So I just
okay. Well, maybe she sounds to me like she's getting in the role of a traditional wife, which I want to get
chat
into.
with.
But before we move on to that, I do want to say one other thing. Coco Gauff, she's a high profile tennis player. She was a
Ah,
flag bearer, US Open champ. Um, she went on Twitter to say that the Olympic Village is basically like a current day fire festival. She said there are cardboard beds in the village, no curtains, inedible food. She said it's terrible how it's being run. So I thought that was interesting. Do you know the fire festival story?
yes, I
Yeah.
love that documentary. Have you had him on yet? You need to have it. He's trying to resurrect his career, I think. And he
Yeah,
was
I don't know if he's misunderstood or if he's just criminal. So
there may be no misunderstanding. Okay.
yeah,
Um,
I have spoken to him before, but I didn't pull the trigger on having him on because he's such a manipulator, you know?
oh my God, yeah. And I think he's working on Firefest 3 or something, right?
Yeah.
Anyhow, well, I'm not surprised. I mean, look, we hear this almost every Olympic Games. I feel like when it was in Russia, when it was in China, like people have a lot of hot takes on the food. I know Olympians have been bringing their own food in. That to me isn't surprising because I'm sure each and every one of them has their own diet. I mean, you work so hard to get there. I'm sure you feel like you have to eat specific things like
That's a
that
good
make
point.
so that doesn't bother
And they're
me.
all from different countries. I mean, everybody eats their own food.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right, right. I mean, if I were from yes, I mean, when you ship in your own stuff, you don't wanna take a risk that you start eating something in a different country and that upsets your stomach or anything. I don't know, people have complaints about this every year
Well,
or
wait, and
every
speaking of exactly what you just said, all the Chinese people tested positive for some sort of heart pill, because they said they ate hamburgers. Did you read about that?
I saw that headline, yeah, but I feel like they dispelled that, right? They were like, "There's no way that you could have eaten hamburger meat that would have."
Well, yeah, but they were still allowed to
You're tr
compete, and so they blamed it on the hamburger. I don't know, we'll have to dig deeper into that, but again, speaking of nutrition, everyone seems to want to have their own thing. So, yeah, I mean, so we don't know if it's a real Fire Festival situation or if people are just being a little
I
whiny.
find it hard to believe it's like a real Fire Fest, and I've heard other good things, like they're for the first time, they're allowing, like, childcare, the Olympians can bring their kids, there's places to, like, breastfeed your child. I mean, that's like I think that's a huge improvement.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, for
All right, so let's go back to what we were just brought up a second ago with traditional wives. This is a topic that has blown up in the last couple weeks, especially, I'll be honest with you. I First of all, can you explain to people what a trad wife is before I tell you my experience?
yeah, traditional wife, meaning they stay at home, raise the kids, do all the traditional housework that women used to do, cook, clean, cook everything from scratch, kinda defer to the man, that he makes the decisions. I'm sure most men would, like, love if women were back to that.
Right. I
Including
think so too.
my husband would love that. But I actually always joke, I kinda have a trad husband. He does a lot for me, so I have it pretty good. But,
So you brought up, and I've seen a couple of people talk about it, a woman
so
whose Instagram handle is ballerina. I want to say ballerina girl, ballerina farm.
Ballerina Farm.
She's eight
Hannah
million followers.
Nealon. Yes, 8,000,000 followers on TikTok.
Okay. And what's the big deal with her? Why are people following her?
So this has been going viral for 10 days because the Times UK did a piece on her. Now, even before this, what has drawn a lot of people to their lives, right, is her husband Daniel is the heir to the JetBlue fortune.
Mhm.
Okay, so and she's stunning, 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 and her TikToks give me anxiety because she makes her own butter. I mean, this bitch churns her own fucking butter. She's got 8 kids.
Wow.
I mean, she sits there, she'll make a whole roasted turkey. She'll make her own chicken parm where she'll basically go out, chop the chicken's head off, skin it. She doesn't do that, but she does like everything. She makes her own mozzarella. Would you know how to make your own mozzarella?
No,
I
but
freaking
if my husband was worth $400 million because he's the heir to JetBlue, I probably would have all the time in the world if I lived in a big, huge mansion. She lives on a farm, but still in a big, huge farm. Why not? That sounds fun to go get the eggs, to go have chickens. I mean, I don't know. It sounds fun. I don't know if it would be fun. Maybe it's fun for like a week. I know I wouldn't want 8 kids by myself. I would want a nanny.
Wow, that's controversy. So they do this article. They don't have a nanny because he does not
Right.
want a nanny. They're both, by the way, and this is a big part of the story. They're both raised Mormon, pretty hardcore Mormon, right?
Yeah.
And there's a level in Mormonism. You interviewed our girl, Mary Brown from
Mhm.
Sister Wives, where Mormons believe life should be hard here on earth because if you can survive the hardship here, your reward is heaven, right? When you die, it's easy. So that's sort of ingrained in both of them. But this article went viral for a couple reasons. One, this author or this writer makes it out like she thinks she's going to have one-on-one time with Nealman. And the whole time, Nealman's kids are interrupting, Daniel's interrupting. Daniel gives her a tour of the farm and the ditches, which she has zero interest in. She wants to speak to Nealman about her ideology on conception, which it's like she's got 8 kids. You think like I don't think she's into conception. I don't think she's pro-abortion. Like
Right.
this woman wants to ask her all these questions. So she doesn't really get to any of the meat of the interview. She puts the interview out. And the other thing is Daniel at the end of the interview says that Hannah, I mean, she competed in a beauty pageant 10 days after giving birth to her 8th child. And he says Hannah works so hard, she will make herself sick and she will be in bed for a week. And people were outraged. Like, okay, you're a billionaire, then hire a nanny for her. Like, and they don't want to do that. They want to live this traditional life. So a lot
Right.
of people were like, is Hannah really happy or not? Now, since then, the writer has come out and said, well, didn't really do an apology, but did almost like a part two. Like, well, there was more to the story. And I've been shocked by people's outrage and people have come for me because and I came for the writer because the writer has no kids. And you know this, you have a child. When your children are little, you can't have a conversation with anyone. The moment you get on the phone or a person comes in the room, all they want to do is interrupt
My
you.
daughter is
Your
12,
attention.
and it's the same situation. I get on the phone, she's blabbing in my ear. If I'm not on the phone, she's like, "Mom, why are you talking to me?" Like, "I'm busy." Yeah,
Right.
she did it.
So, and the author said, "Well, it's sexist of you all to come for me when I don't have a child, and I think actually not having kids, it was perfectly clear for me that I could see that this woman, is living this difficult life because all these children she's trying to manage." Anyhow, there's been a bit of a correction with this story. I find them so fascinating to watch. I don't know. I think because they're so beautiful as a couple and they make it look easy when clearly it's very difficult.
Well,
Um,
the takeaway that I saw, and I didn't read as much on it as you, I found it interesting because they had talked about in her past, she had moved to New York and went to Juilliard and she was studying to be a ballerina, hence her handle of Ballerina Farm. And they almost had they were sort of intonating that she lost this whole life, that she could, someone she could have been, something she wanted to do to go live this kind of off the beaten path life on a farm, raising cattle and children and churning butter. So it almost seemed like she was, being forced to do something she didn't want to do. And my takeaway from reading that though was like, I'm sorry, 8 million people follow her and are interested in her and follow what she does every morning, from wiping her kid's face to sitting around having coffee and brushing her hair. And she would have never had that notoriety. I think she probably wanted to be famous. She wanted to be a performer, right? So, like, this is great for her. Why would anyone think that this life is terrible?
Okay, well, I agree in the sense I think feminism, because people are saying this is like awful. What about feminism? Feminism, the whole reason for it is like it's a choice, right? Women get to choose what they want to do, what they want their lives to be. She set herself up in the article because Neilman says, like, I thought my life was going to be living in New York City
Yeah.
and being this professional ballerina. I really loved it. And then I met Daniel, and Daniel, see, now you've dated, like, do you think this story is controlling or romantic?
I think it's
Obviously,
romantic. I would
the
love a man to say, "Don't ever work again. Go in the kitchen and figure out how to make a chicken." I'd be like, "Awesome.
there's no
Awesome." By the way, speaking of which, I just interviewed this manly guy on my show. The episode has not come out. It will, and you guys are gonna love the episode, so please listen when it comes out. His name is Clifton Mack, and he talks all about hormones, injections, what people should do for anti-aging and to build muscle and all this stuff besides going to the gym. You can't do it on your own. You have to do all this other stuff. So it's really interesting. But we were talking about, because his wife does it too, and they have like an alpha male clinic and an alpha chick clinic or something. And his wife, who I see out in Palm Beach all the time with him, we were talking about dating, and he was saying to me at the end of the interview that she is a complete trad wife. And I was shocked to hear this. And he was like, "Listen, I fully believe in this." He's very big into like politics and being in the Republican Party. So he's like, anyone who is MAGA believes in trad wives, which I found interesting. He's like, "We are men's men, and it doesn't mean we think that they should be stuck in the kitchen and have no voice." He goes, "A huge part of my life is owed to my wife. I cannot go out and forage in the world without knowing that I have her support at home." And she sends me out every morning. She grabs my face in her hands and she says, "Thank you so much for what you do for our family and for giving me this life. And I'm so proud of you." She hits me on the ass and she sends me out for the day. And he's like, "That fires me up more than a shot of testosterone." I mean, I thought it was odd, but I thought it was completely romantic. And I was like, where are all the Republican men? Because I'm over here. Maybe I should switch that on my profile too. So it's
Never.
interesting.
I think it's great. Look, I think it's hard for two people to be, I have the opposite, right? I have a husband who sacrificed, he loved his job in Virginia, but he believed in what I was doing. So he picked up our lives, moved to California. I mean, I think it's hard for both people to have really successful careers. I think one person has to lead and in different aspects of a
I agree.
relationship. And also, what works for one couple may not work for another. And to your point, I think there are women that love it. I think they want their man to make the decision. I think men like it. A lot of men like it. Some men don't. More
Right.
men than ever are stay-at-home dads and like it. So
That's right.
I did not find this controversial. I think Hannah Nealman is happy in her life. I would be a little bummed if I had married a billionaire and I'd have to go out there and make my own goddamn butter in that KitchenAid mixer, but that's just me. I want the chef and the nanny. No
But
one.
listen, they might get their own cookbook out of it. I think they're selling food,
They're
right?
making a fortune. They sell these like you can buy like a custom croissant box. I mean, she's making a fortune on top of their fortune. But I
Right.
mean, everything they do is beautifully done. Like I bet she's not editing her own videos, and the writer like doesn't even get to any of that shit. Who's
Yeah.
editing the videos? Who's shooting all the videos? You're telling me
It's not the
Hannah's setting that up?
4-year-old kid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot here, but
Yeah. All right. Well, anyways, we'll see
I
what
love her
comes
friend.
out of it. I think both you and I are going to try and attempt to. I've tried to reach out to a couple trad wives to have them on my show because I think they're misunderstood, just like I think the Amish are misunderstood. I would love to
Please do.
be a trad wife or an Amish person for a week and see if I could live in that world. Wouldn't
Hell,
you?
mm-mm.
No?
Oh, oh my God, no. You wanna ride around in a horse and buggy and look at a horse's asshole all day? No, I don't think so. You know how they live? I mean, are you kidding?
I
No,
think it's
and
fascinating. I don't know what goes on over there.
absolutely not. And I live in Maine, where my mom lives, there's a whole Amish, community. They are lovely. Can they make a mean donut? Yes. But you know what? The thing is they work for different people in the town, and the minute they can get an iPad in their hands, honey, they are on the World Wide Web. Do not let them fool you. And
Okay.
no, who wants to live like that? It's terrible. They have babies that die because they don't believe in going to the hospital, things that you could easily prevent. No, there's nothing glamorous in it, and
Yeah,
it's
but that's
almost
also like Scientologists.
crazy as well. I mean, I think you should believe it. Well, you should believe in anything you want, but I mean, come on, there are levels of modern science that work. Do I believe in everything? No. Do I believe the pharmaceutical companies are money hustlers? Yes. But I mean, some of these advancements are real.
Right.
And going
Okay.
to a hospital to have a child saves lives.
That is true. That is true. Okay, so let's move on from this. Everyone, comment in our DMs if you want to talk more about it. Once one of us books a trad wife, by the way,
Yes, we
or an
have.
Amish, we will let you guys know, and you guys can watch that episode. Okay, we are in completely historic times. Don't you think we're living in just the craziest times? In the last 2 weeks, so much stuff has happened from an assassination attempt, Biden stepping down. A woman of Black and Indian heritage is now the face of the Democratic Party. Is on the ticket. This morning, the two Americans I think have been released in a historic prisoner swap. If people are
Where?
following that in Turkey, there's something like 17. We'll have to see what it's up to.
Wow.
There's a prisoner swap going on. We're going to find out more details, but that is a huge story right now going on. I'm looking behind you. It's a U.S. Russia prisoner swap, and the national security advisor is on right now with breaking
What?
news to
Are we
talk
getting
about it.
Paul Whelan back? My God, get that
Yes,
man back.
his name has been brought up. So yes, I believe he is on his way home. Yeah,
That would
very
be
interesting, George.
enormous.
If that's true, you could put that stuff up behind us so we know
Oh
what we're
my
talking
God.
about. But let's
Okay.
talk for a second because in the news this morning, when I woke up, also last night, you saw a ton of conversation about how Trump, like him or hate him, has put his foot in his mouth again. He spoke to a conference of Black journalists. Both candidates are courting Black voters right now. That is a big conversation piece. And it seems that Trump may have made a little bit of a gaffe in the last 24 hours. Are you familiar with what happened?
Which gaff?
Well, as he was being interviewed by a Black journalist, and she gave him a pretty harsh question. I mean, she did start off saying, "You've done X, Y, Z, and here's why we shouldn't like you. Basically, tell us why we should give you a chance." And he, instead of being humble and taking the opportunity to say, "I've changed my thought process, I've changed my ways, or here's why I'm the best president for you," he got super pissed and basically was aggressive. He called her nasty. He said that she was 30 minutes late to start the
Well,
interview.
I've seen this clip.
And
Okay.
then he doubled down on Kamala not leaning into being Black. He didn't know she was Black, and that she, as far as he knew, she was Indian only until recently when she decided she wanted the Black vote. You didn't think that was a gaffe?
Um, well, here's what I didn't like. Here's what I agree with him on, and then what I disagree. Do you think that that journalist ever would have introed Kamala Harris like that? And here's what I didn't see. Did that journalist, I mean, did they have their pleasantries prior? Did that journalist say, former Mr. President Trump, thank you for being here. We're going to head out on the stage.
It sounds like that did not happen because he got upset that she didn't even say hello.
This is my problem. This is why I dislike both parties. The media is horrible and in crisis because they would never do this to Kamala Harris. This is the part where I agree with conservative people. If she had been out on stage, people would be fawning over Kamala. Maybe she deserves that. I'm just saying, where was the maybe this journalist did. Maybe she said to him, "Hi, thank you, sir. We're going to get right into it." And then she went into, "You have, done
He
X,
makes
Y, or
the
Z."
point. He makes a point to say she did not address him properly. So it sounds like she did not. It sounds like
They
she
could
just
never
launched into the question.
do that to Kamala ever, ever, ever. I'm just saying they wouldn't. That is the double standard of the media.
Okay.
Now, I think his answer wasn't great. You're right. It
Mhm.
was a gaffe. He doesn't seem like he has a lot to lean on, except for he says, I funded Black colleges. I made sure they got money when nobody else was giving them money. Is that true? I don't know. I'd have to go back and fact check. He says, "Oh, I've done so much for people of color, giving them business, giving them jobs." Now, since then, I've seen other journalists come out and go fact for fact that more people of color are working under Joe Biden's administration than they are under former President Trump's. Okay, well, you got to dive into that. Is that maybe that's 100% true? And Trump really did nothing to increase people of color, but we know that the Black Lives Matter movement has 100% had a great impact. You have more people of color in managerial positions, in CEO positions. That's the way it should be. We have a woman of color running for president. He just doesn't answer these questions well, if in fact, and maybe he has no record to stand on. But
Right.
I didn't they do come out hot for him, I do think, from the beginning. And again, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve that. He's a confusing orator, just stick to the facts. And why he doesn't stick to everything the Biden administration has gotten wrong,
Right.
he lets his own ego get in his way. Look, the Republican Party, as we said last week, in my opinion, they have a huge crisis. JD ain't the guy now, we got to have some momentum. The Republicans have no momentum now.
Do you think that there is a shot, and people can comment in the comments that are watching? I'm curious that Trump will replace JD Vance before November. Is that even legal? Can you do that? But I've heard people
you do
talk
that?
about it a little bit.
Okay, well, our wonderful Rumble viewers know probably better than I do. Can
Yeah.
you replace the vice presidential candidate?
Right.
At
Maybe
this
someone
stage?
will write us as we're talking. But I think that's curious because a lot of people have said that the Republicans have a problem in JD Vance and he should be replaced. But, speaking of which, Kamala has a bunch of problems as well. I mean, I think it'll be interesting. But on that point though of what's going on, you sent me an interesting article saying that Joe Rogan is now predicting, because of all the stuff that's going on, that Kamala is going to win the presidential election in November, which is a huge statement for someone like Joe Rogan to make, who I believe is a Trump supporter.
Well, he says he's not, and he says that he's been approached multiple times by the Trump family and Trump administration to have Trump on, and he has always turned it down. He, I think, identifies more as a libertarian. I'm a Joe fan. I like my Joe Rogan.
But I thought he was close with Elon Musk, and maybe I'm making that up, but I thought that he was leaning towards MAGA. That's how I always read him.
I mean, that's a great thing. It's always sounds that way, and then he always says like he wants to vote for more the libertarian RFK Jr. type. I think, but I don't.
Right.
I don't know that Joe has actually said who he's going to vote for. Not
Okay, so it's interesting to hear his prediction. I have a friend who is
I think it's right.
Yeah,
I think
the
it's right.
most
I think she's
notorious. Go ahead.
No, I think she's winning at this point. I mean, I don't see how. I mean, are we getting a debate? First of all, Trump has to debate her.
Right.
But that's
He says he's not going to now, but we'll see what happens.
Well,
So here's an interesting fact too. I don't know if you guys have seen this or heard about this week. A friend of mine, a girl I know very well, she's known as, her title is the internet's most notorious, or social media's most notorious astrologer. Her name is Amy Tripp. She goes by the name Starheel. She predicted in 2020 that Joe Biden would step down on the actual date that he stepped down. Crazy. So everyone went nuts. She's been in every sort of article. By the way, she is booked now for readings through December of this year, doing 4 to 6 readings a day on people. I mean, this girl, this girl is just, and she is shocked about how this is blown up. She didn't even remember she said that. Her newest prediction in doing the signs, in reading the moons, I don't know what the hell she does because I don't follow that stuff. Her prediction is that Donald Trump is going to win based on the stars and based on Donald Trump's the moons and the stars above his head. She says that Kamala has a great reading as well, but that Trump is going to win. So that'll be interesting to see if her prediction comes true.
Good luck. If it actually comes true, girl, I will book double readings in 2025. I think it's going to be very hard to beat Kamala. With, again, I think if he'd chosen a woman as a VP, that's like a whole different story. But I think everybody's continuing to run with this whole childless cat lady thing. It's been hard for JD Vance to recover from that in any meaningful
Well, I think if the Republicans want to get back up there, they got to stop making personal comments on anyone, especially women. I think that is a huge problem.
What did you think of that story, by the way, I had sent to you that, and I think this is very smart, that Kamala Harris is going to take the opposite playbook of Hillary Clinton. And what they mean by that is she is not going to talk as much about being a woman, and she's not going to talk race issues as much.
I agree. I think that's a very smart way to play it. I think she'll get much further. I don't think a lot of people like to hear, sorry, I'm going to say it, unpopular opinion. They don't like to hear about women's stuff so much. They don't like to hear about what it's like to grow up as a woman of color or a different race. They think that sounds weak or that you're leaning on something that you don't necessarily need to. So I think she should play it right down the middle, like she is qualified. Almost like she's the man, like not necessarily gender of the man, but my heading on my Instagram is, if I was a man, I'd be the man. I don't mind it. I like being tough, and I don't need to pretend what life has been like being a woman. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think she should run the way she's going to run. She's a smart girl, and people will fall in line or they won't. They'll either like her or they won't. So it should be about the issues for sure.
Well, I thought that was very smart because Hillary Clinton, if everybody remembers 2016, would go out on stages and be like, I'm the first woman this, I'm the first woman. And they really felt like that ended up hurting her. So you're not going to hear that a lot from Kamala, which I do. I agree with you. I think is a very smart stance. It's going to be interesting. I do find it, I read a lot. I mean, a lot of my feed, most of my followers, most of my friends are huge pro Kamala fans. They're voting for her. They're enthusiastic. It's just so interesting to me. 8 months ago, I mean, wasn't she viewed as like the worst vice president ever?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People hated her. And everyone's like, she cannot win. She's terrible.
And now it's like, it's almost like we've seen the Messiah. It's just like wild, the turn of events.
Right. All right. Speaking of VP stuff, let's talk about Kamala's VP pick, the options she has, and let's make some predictions. This could be fun because it's coming from us we admitted last week, we haven't decided. We're undecideds. You, I think, lean more Republican. I lean more.
I wouldn't vote for Trump. There's no way. It's so chaotic.
Mm-mm. But do you think that 6 months ago you would have?
No, I never would have voted for Trump. Mm-mm.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, let's see what happens.
Look, I've had Marianne Williamson on my show. I'm trying to get RFK Jr. on my show. I would vote for somebody like that. I've said it a million times. I'm an independent. I'll continue to say it. Both parties absolutely do not have the best interest of the average American at the center core anymore of the parties. They might have 20 years ago. They might have 30 years ago. And I understand why people are drawn to Trump. They want to change. And I've had it with these preachy, extreme liberal woke people. I'm over it. Most of America's over it. They want an excuse to not vote Democrat, but unfortunately, we don't have one.
Hold on. Why would you vote for an independent like a Jill Stein or an RFK Jr. when that's going to take away from someone else's vote? Don't you feel like you need to vote? And I'm not making criticism. I'm genuinely asking. Don't you think that takes away from someone who really needs a vote?
Well, if you talk to Marianne or you talk to RFK Jr., their argument is until and the American people are ready for a change. We see it, right? Which is why people are drawn to Trump and why people are so fed up with the Democrats. Until mass people show that they want either a third party or they want an independent candidate, an outlier, things are never going to change.
Right.
So I think I think voting is very personal. I think, you have to, despite what I can't stand both sides because they pressure you and make you say all those things like, well, you're, not American if you're not voting for this party or that party. And it's like, why? What are they truly doing for you? That
Right.
you have seen? It's very personal. So I do believe I've said it on this show. I think we need a democratic revolution. We need a revolution in the way, not a civil war or anything insane like that. But these parties are so driven by big PAC money. They are not interested in the average American anymore.
Right.
So I think you have to think to yourself, am I going to go along with the party and keep that perpetuating? Or am I going to, take a stance and do something different?
Okay. All good things to think about. All right. So I'm going to go through, you guys that are listening. I'm going to read the top 4 or 5 as of this morning, finalists. This is according to a number of different sources, one being CBS, but one being BBC also. So to talk about who the picks are going to be for Kamala. Now, she could pick somebody as soon as Monday. They say that she wants to go out on the trail as soon as next week with this candidate and really start promoting. So I'm going to go down the list. I'm going to read a couple of the things that say are the pros and cons. And then at the end of this, I think you and I should talk about what we think and make our predictions. And then by next week, we'll see who was right. Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right. So here we go. First one, Josh Shapiro. He's the Pennsylvania governor. Okay. So I think people like him. He is 51 years old. He has high approval ratings. He was elected in 2022. He captured national headlines after quickly working to rebuild a collapsed bridge on a pivotal Philadelphia highway last year. That's how people kind of got to know him. He would be the first Jewish vice president if chosen by Miss Harris. And so this, I would think, gets you more of the Jewish vote. Also, Philadelphia has 19 electoral votes. This is very important for voting. So people think that, she should pick someone from Philadelphia because that could really help.
Yeah.
The vulnerabilities for him is that there's some stuff with education. Let's see. In mid-July, a group of over 24 pro-public school groups sent a letter to Miss Harris in which they urged her to pick another candidate who is wholly committed to our nation's public education system. He's behind a lot of money that's being sent to private school education. So that I think is negative. Okay, moving on. Mark Kelly. People know him. He is the Arizona senator. This is a swing state senator. He has an impressive resume that could appeal to voters on both sides. So he is a Navy combat pilot and NASA astronaut. He spent more than 50 days in space on multiple missions. I think that makes him kind of interesting in his own right. His problem is, first of all, he's 60 years old. He's newer to serving in Washington. He was only sworn into office in December of 2020. The interesting part about him is that his wife was Gabby Gifford. She was the one who was shot in the head in 2011 in Arizona while serving in the House of Representatives. Mr. Kelly's strong border stance and occasional criticisms of the Biden administration could help appeal to independent and conservative voters. The vulnerabilities, he's already come under some criticism for his role founding Worldview. It's a company specialized in high altitude stratospheric balloons. Okay. Anything you want to add on him?
American. No, he's a good American. I don't know anything about that company, but it doesn't
sound like such a big deal. Okay.
It sounds like going to Mars. Okay.
Yeah. Andy Beshear, Kentucky governor. He's been close to Kamala for a while. He's 46 years old. Let's see. He has been able to carve out a successful career as a Democrat in a state that Donald Trump carried by 20 points in the last election. People like that he is charismatic and he has a big personality, apparently. He's given a number of viral interviews criticizing Donald Trump's vice presidential choice, J.D. Vance. And so, people really like him. His vulnerabilities in 2023, he drew the ire of some Kentucky Republicans for his veto of a law that banned transgender surgery or drugs involving children. So there you go.
Wait, he banned Or he didn't want
He
them there.
vetoed the law that banned transgender surgery or drugs
Okay.
involving children. The state's General Assembly ultimately overrode his veto and enacted the law. Got it?
Gotcha.
Okay. Next, Tim Walz, Minnesota governor. He has served 12 years in Congress before becoming governor in 2018. So he's been doing this for quite a while. He called Donald Trump and JD Vance weird. That was his comment.
Oh yeah,
about
that's
them.
the new insult is weird.
Yeah. He just said, he's just a strange, weird dude of Trump. Okay. He's 60 years old. He's led Minnesota through 2020 protests over George Floyd's death in Minneapolis. He deployed the National Guard to help quell riots that broke out during the demonstrations. He served 20 years in the National Guard, taught high school, and worked as an assistant football coach. The vulnerabilities for Mr. Walz, let's see. People criticize his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2020 protests. And some people have said he was fearful of alienating his progressive base with a more forceful response. So they think he's a little bit weak. And last, I will add into this, who I think is very low on the totem pole, but people know his name, Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary. I always get his name wrong. Did I pronounce it right?
Mayor Pete.
So let's see. He is mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He was a surprise favorite of liberal voters in his failed 2020 Democratic primary campaign. He's arguably been one of the White House's best communicators. People really like him. He did a show with Real Time with Bill Maher. He took multiple shots at Mr. Vance. He knows a lot of people like Mr. Vance, he said, who would say whatever they needed to in order to get ahead. So obviously he's not scared of saying anything. Let's see.
But he says that, and he means that in that, these individuals are not willing to stand up to the things that Trump does that are not ethical. Meanwhile, he went on Bill Maher to say how sharp as attack President Biden was, and he's our guy. And then, of course, 10 seconds later,
right.
Right. So it's like give me a break.
Yeah,
now,
I know what you're saying.
Mayor Pete's making a good point, which is it's more election, denial stuff and all that. So, that's far different than riding for your guy Biden and pretending like he's sharp as attack.
Yeah.
But that is a lie.
One other positive, they say he helped to oversee the response to the East Palestine train derailment in Ohio, the Baltimore bridge collapse, and Southwest Airlines scheduling crisis in 2022. His vulnerabilities, Republicans have criticized him for his handling of the role as transportation secretary, saying he took too long to go to East Palestine and has been ineffective when addressing problems facing the U.S. aviation sector. So honestly, if people don't want me to say it, fine, but I'm going to say it. I don't know that people have gotten over the fact that he is a gay man. And so, people still talk about that and people criticize his choices because of that. So anyway, that was a big thing. I like him. All right. So what are your thoughts out of these people? These are the picks. This is what it's down to. In my opinion, I'll start by saying I like Mark Kelly. I think he looks good. I think he seems like a great American. He's got a great story. People, like you said earlier, vote emotionally. And I think that he could draw out a lot of emotion about being a patriot on their side. So I do really like him. I happen to think that Josh Shapiro is going to follow through and become the VP pick because of those 19 electoral votes and because he's Jewish. That's my opinion.
I think it will make a huge statement, right? Because we're still trying to figure out, and I believe since you and I did our episode last week, Kamala came out and did a very pro-Israel speech and standing by Bibi and what an ally Israel is to the U.S. Does she believe that? If she picks Josh Shapiro, I think she really does. Now, a lot of people come for me when I say that because they say, well, Kamala Harris's husband is Jewish.
Right.
But I think it's between Shapiro or Bashir, but I don't know. Look, I am by no means
and why do you say Bashir? Why do you like Bashir?
That is just Kentucky's a conservative state too, and it depends, it's really like, I don't know. I guess I think what people are waiting to see is how progressive is Kamala Harris going to be? Is she more along the Joe Biden lines, which I think Joe was a very reasonable president, and I think really did try to work with both sides, was down the middle. Again, you don't have to, I know a lot of people do not like a lot of the policies. And again, the way they handled COVID, I didn't think was great, particularly at all.
Mm.
So, but I don't know, I think we don't really know her. We don't, and in a way, I actually think that's an advantage for her because there isn't much time to get to know her. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of time for her to put her foot in her mouth because there's only a couple of months. So how progressive is she really? You don't know. You don't know a lot about her.
I like that you just picked Andy Bashir for a second because the more I'm reading about him
I think
and
that's
what you're saying, I feel like she could take a back seat on having to put any personal attacks out, even though this has become a very personal election, right? So as these two on Trump and Vance do a lot of personal commentary on the Democrat side, she might take the high road and keep it all about policy and what she's going to do and what she sees, while she could let Andy Bashir, who is known for making very viral comments criticizing Donald Trump's choice, Vance. He said he ain't from here. He's called Vance a phony and a fake, and talks about thinking his book Hillbilly Elegy or Elegy, whatever it is a bunch of bullshit. So she could make him more of the talking head and being the guy who kind of goes out against them. The other two guys might be a little too conservative in the fact that they're not going to go out there and be so nasty.
It's so hard to tell. I mean, Mark Kelly is a great pick if you want a real all-American and also level-headed.
Right.
I
Right.
I just don't. I tend to agree with you. I think it's going to be Josh Shapiro. I think.
Okay. You got
It will
you could
say
you
a
could pick
lot.
one. What are we picking? Let's see if we're right.
It'll say a lot if it's Bashir, I think. My gut says Bashir. My gut says Bashir, but I think it will. What is your? I don't know. I'm really honestly torn. Who do you think?
Okay, well, let's pick one. My top three are Bashir, Kelly, and Shapiro. And I guess I think I'm going to go with Shapiro only for the fact that that we need Pennsylvania.
All
We
right.
also need Kentucky. So I'm going to do Shapiro. You pick.
I'll go Bashir. I'll
Okay,
go Bashir. I'm not very confident about my pick, but it's Final Jeopardy, so what the heck? I'll throw
Okay,
it.
and if we end up with Mark Kelly, I think everyone will be happy as well.
Good one. Very good
Yeah.
one. Yep. She'd be wise to pick him.
All right. So before we end this, I do want to talk about something you are an expert on and I'm not, but I want to get into it, is a little bit of what's going on in reality TV right now. We got a little bit of news coming out of the Real Housewives of New Jersey this week from Andy saying that they are completely going to turn the cast upside down. What are you hearing?
Okay, yes, he initially said that, then he backtracked because Andy is such a genius at always making you seem he answers every question, but then he never really answers the question.
Right.
So he said, "Oh, I was just caught up in the moment and something needs to be done." So I said yeah, I could see a full reboot, but I didn't mean it that way. I do think we're getting somewhat of a new cast. I can't see them doing that show without Teresa Giudice. I just can't. Real Housewives of New York, the reboot, I love, but it's not like it's a huge smash hit.
I've never even seen it. I stopped
There you
watching
go.
when it came on. Yeah.
Exactly. So I can't. I could see Melissa Gorga going. Maybe I could see probably Melissa going, Margaret Josephs going, maybe Jennifer Aiden going. I think they are going to really. I think they're going to really recast, but either Teresa gets her own spinoff or she stays. I think she's the most pivotal one.
You don't think they took a page out of realizing that people didn't like all the anger and the physical violence, and Teresa creates a lot of that? You don't think they would get rid of that?
No, I think they tone it down. I think she's so popular.
Right. Okay. So
So,
people like her is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, look, RHOA will be a big test for them, Real Housewives of Atlanta. That's coming back now, initially with Kenya, but Kenya posted this sexually explicit photo of a cast member or of a sexual object, and the cast member was in the picture. Anyway, so she's been removed, right? So now Phaedra is going to come back, and you're going to have Phaedra and Portia, who were the original OGs, and then all these other newbies. That's going to be a big test for them. Cynthia
Yeah.
Bailey's a friend of, but she's been a longtime cast member. If that goes well, but again, Phaedra and Portia are legendary housewives. So that's why it leads me to believe like Teresa stays.
Interesting. Okay. Well, this weekend is the finale, so to speak. It's the last one. And then the following Sunday is going to be a viewing. What is the viewing of, by the way?
Well, they're all watching the show, I believe. They're watching different scenes, shows, and reacting
Got it. Okay. So it'll be
all
okay.
separately because they all can't be in the same room together. They all hate one another, yada, yada. So this is kind of them like doing this conclusion finale weighing in, but
Mhm.
there's no reunion.
All right. So, and I had Kim D on to talk about what she thought, and she just thought it got really violent and, terrible. And then actually, a week from Monday, I do have Frank coming on, the husband, Dolores' husband, the morning after the viewing party to give me all the inside scoop about what happened. So we'll see what he says. But, I've been watching this year. I think it's interesting, but I don't understand why they're so nasty to each other. It's just like, terrible, but it is what it is, and it's getting a lot of ratings. So we'll see what happens this Sunday. Are you excited for the finale?
I am excited for the finale. I'm not sure it is getting that many ratings. That might be part of the problem. I mean, haven't checked. I know Real Housewives of Miami, Dubai are getting like no ratings, but they're coming back. I mean, we'll get into this in the future, but I have a whole theory about Bravo, which is I think we are not going to see a BravoCon anywhere again in the near future, even though they say that's happening in 2025. I think they are pulling back everything. I think they are taking a page out of my favorite network, TLC, which used to be the Learning Channel, and now it's the home of Thousand Pound Sisters and Sister Wives.
Love those shows.
TLC very much has a pretty public motto, which is we are not in the business of making people stars. We are a fly on the wall. We come into your house in production. The people are not glamorous. They don't have makeup. They are meant to look like your neighbor, your former cousin, whoever. And they don't want any heat. They're never doing a BravoCon. They don't want any attention. And I think that Bravo, created this, which was awesome. We all loved it. But then there's become this toxic tipping point that they're being sued and it's lawsuits and it's, this reality reckoning, although I think that's basically gone away. I think they want to tone down Andy because Andy is the magic to a lot of this.
Yeah.
And so I think they're slowing everything down. I think if these get any nominal amount of ratings, meaning like 400,000 an episode, they're going to keep them going. And I think they're going to keep slashing salaries for a lot of these women and just kind of keep it more about keeping it light, like what we're happening at RHOC, right?
Well, that's what I was going to bring up. I mean, I think that's the one that people are really watching now. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it. I think this season of RHOC is great. But you've got Jesus Jugs back, which is Alexis Bellino. And she is with Shannon Bedore's ex. Shannon Bedore, by the way, who I thought the DUI was terrible at her age. Like, I mean, if you can't do an Uber at 54 or 56, like this is, I don't even know. But she says she was in a bad place mentally, way out of control with her drinking. But I have to give it to her. She has shown up by far in the past year as one of the best Real Housewives. Can you imagine facing your ex-boyfriend who has left you for somebody in your friend group?
No, and that's why it's so fun to watch, to see that interaction, to see those awkward moments. And, they don't look similar. They look different in age. Like that's got to be tough to be like, that's the girl that is now with my ex, talking about how much they have sex, talking about, how much she loves them. Yeah. Seeing the promise ring. I mean, it's got to be terrible for her, but I think she dodged a bullet. And I think it's a little bit strange, the kind of love bombing that's gone on. I think that I wouldn't date him. Would you? I think he's gross.
No. No. And I think even though he claims he doesn't want to be on TV, I think there's a level of fame that these men love. They love the attention. And I give it to Shannon. She's really, I don't think most women could do that in the way that she's showing up, having scenes with Alexis, going to events, saying yes, working on herself, actually making meaningful apologies. I have to give it to
By the way,
Shannon.
and she looks good. I think she looks very good.
Great. She looks great.
So you're right. I'm proud of her. I do notice in all those scenes, the upcoming stuff, that they do keep pointing out that she is still drinking. Now, I'm not I don't have a past with alcoholism, right? So I don't really know. I do know that once people have gone to rehab, once people admit that they have a problem with it, that they need to stop. So I don't know if her cast members should be giving her as hard of a time as they are about not drinking, just because she has run into some problems. So I don't know. I don't know my feelings on that. Do you have a feeling on that?
It's drinking is such a personal thing, right? And I'm sure you've been around many people who are alcoholics and addicts, and many people who like are borderline, and then many that don't have a problem that could stop.
Mm.
I just, I, personally, as somebody, I don't know Shannon, looking outside in, and I have had Gina Kirschenheiter on months ago, and this went viral because Gina was the first to come out publicly and say she's never stopped drinking. She never stopped drinking after that. To me, as an adult, like that would be a huge wake up call, a
Mm.
huge wake up call for me because I mean, come on, like you can't get in an Uber, a car service. I mean, you're a
Well,
mom
that's
of
about making bad
kids. Like
decisions. Do you think that she should stop drinking altogether?
I would hit pause, but she says she doesn't have a problem. So, you
Well,
know,
that's what people with a problem say.
And exactly. I was going to say, friends who are addicts, right? And they're the first to always tell you they don't have a problem. And you can bet your ass if they have a problem, it won't be one DUI. It won't be one incident. There will be, if you have a problem, it always rears its head. You can never control it because you have a problem. So I think time will tell. For me, if that had happened to me, yeah, I'd hit drinking. I'd hit a big pause on drinking for a while.
I think why I like Real Housewives of Orange County right now, it seems very real to me. Like I have got kind of gone down the rabbit hole of what is going on with, I'm going to say her name. Is it Jen and Ryan, the girl who is having a hard
Yes.
time paying her
And
bills?
pantry. Yeah.
So I can't, I mean, listen, I can relate to her. I had a situation, I haven't really talked about this, but like during COVID, where like, by the way, in New York City, to rent an apartment, you have to show that you make 80 times rent. So I had a guarantor, and during COVID, no one was working, and I couldn't make that high rent. And so luckily, the government came in and paid everyone's rent in New York. I don't know about anywhere else, but I will say that, like, I've been in those moments where you are just in a situation where life happens and you have to pivot, and it's a terrible thing, and you've made some bad decisions, and like it is hard to make money,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're not on a show. Like she's on a show where she can collect a good paycheck, but like that's hard. And now we've seen, it's not on the show yet, but she's engaged now to the guy from the gym, and she lives at his house, and he gave her a Range Rover or whatever, and good for her, but she's still not financially free from a man. And what I learned from that lesson is that I will go on OnlyFans before I ever have to be dependent on a man again. You know what I'm saying? I think it's a very tough position to be in, because once that relationship ends again, she's on the street. So I hope she takes some lessons out of what happened last time.
When you got divorced, like, did that greatly impact your income? Because I think that's so hard.
That did not happen to me in that predicament, because at that time I was making more than the person that I was married to. But I know probably 99.9% of the women I know, that is the situation. They do not get a divorce because of the financial discrepancy, because they don't know how much they're going to get, because there's not enough money to go around. They accuse their husband of hiding money to not give it to them, and their life has to dramatically change. They have to sometimes get a job, and they have no skills. They haven't worked in 12 years, 20 years, whatever it is, and they're raising kids half the time. It is very difficult. Now, I get very little money for child support. I've been in and out of court for over 12 years trying to even get the little amount that basically covers the groceries. It's terrible. When you have forget who you're divorcing or marrying, when you have a 2-person income in your house, it's tremendously easier, married or not, than if you're just a 1-person income, and you're constantly on edge about where your bills are going to get paid from, unless you're divorced really well and you're making $40,000 a month. So, I think it's a very scary position to be in. Anyways, the whole point of my rant here is that I like the show because it's very real. And you see these women who are glamorous and beautiful, but they're living real lives. So, that's why I like it. And I'm going to continue to watch. Also, this morning I woke up to news that Vicky, is accused of elder abuse, which I thought was a crazy story. Yes. So we're going to have to look into that. And, I think people, are always like, oh, I'm famous, so people write terrible stories. She runs a company, so this isn't going to be great for her.
Kodo Insurance, the legendary Kodo Insurance. And now I think they're a financial firm. And this woman is alleging that Vicky kind of was financially advising her, Vicky and this other coworker, and had this insanely high premium life insurance policy that
Yeah.
this woman was paying on,
Mhm.
thinking that, she was going to then have retirement funds. And then she says that Vicky convinced her to buy this annuity that didn't perform. And so, yeah, she's being, and this is actually not the first time that Vicky has had a financial complaint. Now, I think
Interesting.
financial firms probably, I'm not sure that that's like unique. You know what I mean? I think a lot of these financial firms end up getting, when you're messing with people's money, I mean,
Yeah.
uh, it's big stakes. So I'm not sure like it's unusual for a financial firm to, or an insurance
I was going to say, isn't it kind of like gambling? I mean, can you sue someone because they didn't do well with your money? I mean, the markets go up and down. I don't really know.
Well,
We're going
there's
to find out.
well, it depends, right? Are they a fiduciary? Are they, licensed? I mean, they have an obligation to do some. I don't know what Vicky's licensing is, but like if you go to a reputable place, a UBS, a JP Morgan, I mean, they have a duty and
Yeah.
they're backed by the government. I mean, to some extent. Now, if you're going off to a hedge fund, I don't know what guarantees they give you, but my income's too low to get. I'm waiting for my hedge fund invite, but so far no.
Quickly before we end, I wanted to ask you, what is the status of you hosting your courses?
Oh, it's a lot more work than I anticipated. That's what
Okay.
the status is. It's coming along. My goal is to have it out September, October. You're getting a copy of my 6-figure, how I did it, how to monetize, how to grow. But I want it to be really digestible for people. I want the
Mm.
videos to be short. I want there to be actionable steps. So when you buy my how to start your podcast, how to start kind of monetize, book big name guests, and then my 6-figure how I did this, I
Mhm.
want it to be actionable, that people can really see themselves doing it. And so you think like, oh, at first I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to host a 2-hour Zoom and tell people how to do that. And then it's like, well, there's a lot more nuance. There's a lot more, you know, different steps to it, different strategies. So it's coming.
Will you have any live class portion of it so that people can interact with you and ask you direct questions?
I'm not going to yet. I'm going to
Okay.
put the course out like I talked about with you, like to a certain group of people. I'm going to say,
Mhm.
hey, take this. And when you're done, tell me, is it too many videos? Were there not enough worksheets? Were there
Yeah.
too many worksheets? I want your feedback. Then I'm going to take it to market. I'm hoping like amazing podcasters like you will give me an endorsement and say, I loved it. Like, this is what I loved. If you want to grow your
I started
podcast.
making X amount at the end of the month
Yes.
because I took her course. Yeah.
And I'm going to send you, the Wall Street Journal just did an incredible article on how much money is going to be in podcasting over the next 3, 4, 5 years. And the podcasters are going to be the next TV stars. We're seeing that with Alex Cooper at the Olympics. Joe Rogan's got a live special happening at Netflix this weekend. So, it is the future there. And people sitting on the fence going, I don't know, should I start a podcast? It's only going to get bigger and bigger money
Yeah.
numbers.
You are not too late.
You are not too late. We
One of
have
one of
another.
the things I want you to add in there are a list of like tangible people that you could hire for marketing, for getting you a TV deal. Like I'm still looking for that, right? So like who are the people that are the top in the business that, can help you get it started too?
Okay.
Or
See,
you
like
take
I want to do that. I want to, and of course, to do that then takes time, right? Because I got to go to those people and say, can I use you? Can I use
right,
your name in the course? Are you taking new clients?
right,
Do you want to disclose your rates or do you not?
right.
So it's like so many more things that have
They could
gotten.
be they
uh,
could be a guest on your on one of your classes or something to talk
yeah,
about the industry, what networks are looking for now, so that people could get excited about it and think about how to pivot their shows into that too. So that's
yeah.
another angle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm super excited, but I really want to try to do it right. And I want it to be thoughtful. And I want it, I know you probably have. I've taken courses in my life Some of them have been awesome. And then some of them, it's like so much stuff. You turn it off. You never do it. It's like, this is like
It seems
impossible.
overwhelming. Yeah. So you got to make it quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
With
And
bullet points.
yes. And then I do want to host some live events that I'm gonna tell you about to help
Great.
podcasters. Cause yeah, the time is now, baby. It is only gonna get bigger and bigger.
Okay, great. All right. Well, I look forward. We are going to do this next week again, you guys. Thursday, 12:45. We are always live on Rumble. You can look on our Instagrams that day, that moment, and we have a direct link to the show. And it'll be live on Sarah's YouTube at the same time. And then we replay this later on both of our podcasts. But I am Rachel Uchitel from Misunderstood. Please listen to me. If you haven't subscribed or gone on my podcast, please do. I have some really exciting guests this weekend. I'm featuring, it's a bonus episode. It's someone I played in the past, but it is with Greg Louganis, the former Olympic diver, who talks about what it was like to be hiding that he was gay, that he had, that he was HIV positive, and did a dive at the Olympics that hit his head on the board and he got blood in the pool. So it was a fantastic episode that I will be playing on Sunday. What about you? Any upcoming guests people should be watching?
Well, Peter Madrigal from Vanderpump Rules is going to be on in the next week. So Sarah Fraser Show, I put out new episodes daily. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. But he's a Vanderpump Rules former personality on there, was not invited back, and talks. He kind of has some scoop on what he thinks the future of Vanderpump Rules is, which is he does not see it coming back with the full cast. Yeah.
Well, they're definitely not going to start a cooking show, those girls, the way they make their sandwiches.
Damn right. And I review that.
Maybe you and I should do a pop-up where you we go somewhere and we make some sort of food and we do something on the line to show people what you should do when you are famous and you have a food truck or whatever, right? And we can take little samples out. We can have a live podcast going. We can have a tasting section. I don't know, but it could be a kind of a spoof on what they're doing, but we could go from city to city and do stuff like that. Because I'm not standing in line, but it would be fun. I'm a great sandwich maker, by the way.
Oh,
yes.
What's your go-to sandwich? Then I know we have to go, but
okay. My flight is delayed. Actually, I've been watching. My go-to sandwich, I will tell you, is okay. I mix a little turkey. I don't put too much of anything. A little turkey, a little salami, like one piece of ham, one piece of provolone, pickles, tomatoes, mustard, avocado, and then the topping, the secret sauce is I put a tiny bit of cottage cheese. Because then it gives it that little, I hate mayonnaise, so it gives you that little mayonnaise-y flavor. And then if I have it, I dip it when I'm eating it in gazpacho.
Wow, what a combo. Okay. You should be opening your
I'm going to make you that sandwich when you come to visit me. People are like barfing as they're listening to this, but it's so good.
All right. Loving you and leaving you. We'll see you next week.
Safe flight.
Bye, gorgeous. See ya. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Misunderstood. I'm your host, Rachel Uchitel. Please be sure to subscribe to the show and give us a 5-star rating and review. You can support the show by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/misunderstood with Rachel Uchitel. Do you have ideas for the show or want to reach out? Email us at info misunderstoodpodcast@gmail.com. That's spelled MISS understood. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.